Exhausted and alone, Hannah trudged through the relentless snow, cradling her newborn babies close to her chest. She glanced back, but the settlers who had once been her companions were long gone. They had abandoned her, deeming her a hindrance in their race to find shelter. Mr. Thompson, the leader, had said they couldn't afford to wait. But as the storm raged on, a shadow emerged from the trees, a man in animal skins, watching her intently. Relief and fear battled within her, but she knew she had no choice. Before she could react, exhaustion claimed her consciousness. Before we dive in, share where you're watching from, and subscribe if you believe that miracles can find us when we least expect them. Hannah walked through the deep snow, holding her newborn babies close. The wind was cold, biting at her face and hands. Her thick coat, once warm, now felt thin against the harsh winter. Her boots sank into the snow with each step, making her journey slow and tiring. She looked back, but the group of settlers she had traveled with was gone. They had left her behind, deciding she was too much of a burden. The leader, a man named Mr. Thompson, had said they could not wait for her. They needed to move quickly to find shelter before the storm got worse. Hannah's heart sank as she remembered his cold words. Her husband had died months ago, leaving her alone with the babies. Together with the settlers, they had hoped to find a new life in the West. But now that dream seemed far away. Hannah felt tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had to stay strong for her babies. They were so small, wrapped tightly against her chest to keep warm. She could feel their tiny breaths against her skin, a reminder that she could not give up. The snow fell harder, and the wind howled around her. Hannah struggled to keep moving, her legs heavy and tired. She looked around, hoping to find some sign of shelter. But there was nothing, only endless white snow and tall, dark trees. Her stomach growled with hunger, and she realized she had not eaten since morning. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of bread. It was dry and hard, but it was all she had. She broke off a piece and ate it slowly, saving the rest for later. She thought of her husband, John, and the promises they had made to each other. They had dreamed of a new home, a place where they could raise their children in peace. She missed him terribly, his laughter and his strength. But he was gone, and now she had to find her own strength. The babies stirred in their wraps, and she murmured softly to them, hoping to soothe them back to sleep. As the day turned to night, the temperature dropped even lower. Hannah's fingers were numb, and her feet felt like blocks of ice. She knew she had to find shelter soon, or they would not survive the night. Her eyes scanned the landscape, desperate for anything that could offer protection from the storm. In the distance, she saw a small grove of trees. It was not much, but it was her only hope. She pushed forward, her body aching with each step. When she finally reached the trees, she collapsed against the trunk of a large pine. The branches above offered some shelter from the falling snow, and she huddled close, trying to keep the babies warm. She pulled her thin blanket tighter around them, whispering words of comfort. Her body ached with exhaustion, and her eyes felt heavy. She knew she could not sleep, but her body begged for rest. Hannah closed her eyes for a moment, just to gather her strength. The wind seemed to whisper old memories, bringing back images of her husband and the warmth of their home. But those memories were far away now, and she had to focus on the present. Her children needed her, and she would do anything to keep them safe. The cold seeped into her bones, and she felt her strength slipping away. Her breaths came in short gasps, and she fought to keep her eyes open. The world around her was silent, except for the howling wind. She felt so alone, so small against the vastness of the storm. But she refused to give up. She would fight until her last breath if it meant her children could live. Hannah knew she needed help, but there was no one around. The settlers were gone, and she had not seen another soul for miles. She prayed silently, hoping for a miracle. As her mind drifted, she thought she saw a shadow moving among the trees. Her heart jumped, but she did not have the strength to call out. She watched as the shadow moved closer, and she realized it was a person. Hope flared in her chest, but she was too weak to move. The figure came into view, a man dressed in animal skins, his face strong and kind. He approached slowly, cautious but not threatening. Hannah felt a mix of fear and relief. She did not know who he was or what he wanted, but she had no choice but to trust him. She felt her eyelids grow heavy, and her vision blurred. Before she could say a word, darkness took over. When Hannah opened her eyes again, she was not alone. The man had built a small fire, and its warmth reached through the cold. She felt her fingers tingle as blood returned to them. The babies were still wrapped close, safe and warm. The man sat nearby, tending the fire and watching her with calm eyes. She did not know his name, but she felt a strange sense of safety in his presence. The storm still raged outside, but within the small grove of trees, there was peace. Hannah knew she had been given a chance, a flicker of hope in the darkness. She would take that chance for herself and her children. With renewed determination, she would face whatever came next. Hannah sat by the small fire, feeling its warmth seep into her bones. The storm still roared outside the grove, but here, she was safe for now. The man who had found her sat across the fire, his presence calm and steady. He watched her with careful eyes, and she felt both grateful and wary. She did not know him, but he had saved her life and the lives of her babies. The man gestured to the fire and then to her, encouraging her to warm herself more. Hannah nodded, understanding his unspoken words. She held her hands closer to the flames, feeling the heat bring life back to her fingers. The babies were asleep, their small faces peaceful against her chest. She felt a wave of relief wash over her, knowing they were safe. She studied the man, noticing his strong build and the way he seemed at ease in the wilderness. His clothes were simple but well-made, designed for survival in the harsh climate. He had dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold wisdom beyond his years. Hannah wondered who he was and why he lived alone in the forest. Despite the language barrier, Hannah felt a sense of trust growing. The man had offered her warmth and safety without asking for anything in return. She knew she had no choice but to rely on his kindness, at least for now. In her heart, she hoped he understood her gratitude. The man pointed to himself and said a word that sounded like, Tahoma. Hannah nodded, realizing it was his name. She pointed to herself and softly said, Hannah. Tahoma repeated her name, a small smile on his lips. It was a simple exchange, but it marked the beginning of their understanding. As the fire burned, Tahoma gestured to the surrounding forest, miming actions as if hunting or gathering. Hannah watched, trying to understand. He was explaining how he lived, how he found food and survived. She nodded, showing she appreciated his skills. She knew she would have to learn these things if she wanted to survive here. When morning came, the storm had eased, leaving a crisp, clear sky. Tahoma stood and motioned for Hannah to follow him. She hesitated, glancing at the babies, but he nodded reassuringly. She wrapped them securely and rose to her feet, feeling the stiffness in her muscles. With careful steps, she followed Tahoma through the snow. He led her to a small camp, hidden among the trees. It was simple, with a makeshift shelter and a few supplies neatly arranged. Hannah felt a sense of comfort knowing there was a place they could stay, even if just for a little while. Tahoma showed her around, pointing out the places where he stored food and tools. Hannah watched as Tahoma gathered some berries and roots, then offered them to her. She took them with gratitude, knowing every bit of food was precious. She ate slowly, savoring the fresh taste. It was a small meal, but it gave her strength. She fed the babies, who cooed softly, their eyes bright and curious. As the day went on, Hannah and Tahoma worked together in silence. He showed her how to tend to the fire, making sure it stayed burning. She helped where she could, learning the small tasks that made up his daily life. They moved with an unspoken understanding, each gesture building a bridge between their worlds. In the afternoon, Tahoma signaled for Hannah to join him in the forest. He showed her how to set simple traps using small branches and cord. She watched closely, eager to learn. Her hands were clumsy at first, but with his guidance, she began to understand. It was hard work, but she felt a sense of accomplishment with each task completed. As they worked, Hannah thought about her old life. The comforts she had known seemed far away now. She realized she had taken many things for granted. Here, every small achievement was a victory. She felt a growing respect for Tahoma and the way he lived. His skills were not just for survival, they were a way of life. When evening came, they returned to the camp. Tahoma prepared a simple meal, using the food they had gathered. Hannah watched as he cooked, trying to learn his methods. The food was warm and filling, and they ate quietly, the fire crackling between them. She felt a sense of peace, knowing they had managed another day. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Hannah sat by the fire, holding the babies close. She thought about the journey that had brought her here and the uncertainty of the future. But for now, she had shelter and warmth. She had Tahoma's help, and that was enough. Before she slept, she looked at Tahoma, trying to convey her gratitude. He nodded, understanding without words. In this quiet corner of the world, they had found a fragile balance. Hannah knew there would be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them. Together, they had begun to build a fragile trust, one that would guide them through the days to come. Hannah woke to the gentle light of dawn filtering through the trees. The air was crisp, but the fire from last night had kept her and the babies warm. The babies stirred in their wraps, and she soothed them with soft murmurs. She felt a sense of calm in the quiet morning, a welcome change from the chaos of the storm. Tahoma was already awake, tending to the fire and preparing for the day. He moved with quiet efficiency, his actions deliberate and practiced. Hannah watched him, trying to learn from his example. She knew she had to be strong for her children, and that meant adapting to this new life. After a simple breakfast of berries and roots, Tahoma gestured for Hannah to join him. He pointed to the forest, indicating they would gather more supplies. She nodded, understanding the need to replenish their food. The babies were secure in their wraps, and she felt ready to take on the day. They walked through the forest, the ground covered in a fresh layer of snow. The trees stood tall around them, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. Hannah followed Tahoma closely, watching his every move. He had an ease about him, a confidence that came from years of living in harmony with the land. As they moved deeper into the woods, Tahoma stopped to show Hannah different plants. He pointed out the ones that were safe to eat and those that were not. She listened carefully, memorizing the details. Her survival and that of her children depended on this knowledge. They spent hours foraging, filling their small bags with berries, roots, and other edible plants. Hannah felt a sense of satisfaction as the bags grew heavier. Each piece of food was a step towards security, a small victory in their fight against the harsh winter. As they worked, Hannah found herself reflecting on her past life. The comforts of home seemed distant now, replaced by the raw beauty of the wilderness. She realized how much she had relied on others before. Here, she had to rely on herself and the skills she was learning from Tahoma. Her thoughts often drifted to her husband, John, and the life they had planned together. She missed him deeply, but she knew she had to keep moving forward. Her children needed her strength, and she would not let them down. When the sun reached its peak, they took a break near a small stream. Tahoma showed Hannah how to find clean water, using a simple cloth to filter it. She watched closely, storing away this new knowledge. She was learning to appreciate the small things, the skills that would keep them alive. After their rest, they continued their work. Tahoma showed her how to check the traps they had set the day before. Hannah felt a thrill of excitement when they found a rabbit caught in one. It was a small catch, but it meant they would have meat for dinner. Tahoma quickly prepared it, showing her the process. She watched with a mix of fascination and gratitude, knowing this was a vital skill. As they made their way back to camp, Hannah felt a growing sense of confidence. She was learning to survive in this new world, and each day brought new lessons. She was no longer just a burden. She was becoming a partner in their fight for survival. Back at the camp, Tahoma started a fire, and they worked together to prepare the evening meal. The babies giggled nearby, their bright eyes watching the flickering flames. Hannah felt a warmth spread through her heart, a sense of hope she had not felt in a long time. As they ate, she looked at Tahoma, trying to express her gratitude. He nodded, understanding the unspoken thanks. Their bond was growing, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. They were learning to communicate without words, a silent language formed by necessity and trust. In the evenings, after the work was done and the babies were asleep, Hannah and Tahoma would sit by the fire. She would tell him about her life before, using simple words and gestures. He listened, sharing bits of his own story in return. The gaps in their understanding were filled by patience and the desire to connect. Tahoma spoke of his family and his traditions, painting pictures of a life rich with meaning and history. Hannah found herself drawn to his stories, the wisdom they held and the strength they conveyed. She realized that despite their different backgrounds, they shared common values, a love for family and a respect for the land. Each day brought new challenges, but also new achievements. Hannah learned to weave simple baskets, to mend torn clothes, and to read the signs of the weather. She found a rhythm in the work, a sense of purpose that filled her days. Her confidence grew, and with it, her bond with Tahoma deepened. The babies were thriving, their laughter a constant source of joy. Hannah felt a deep connection to them, a fierce love that drove her to keep fighting. She knew that as long as she had Tahoma's guidance and her own determination, they would find a way to survive. With each passing day, Hannah felt more at home in the forest. She was no longer a lost settler, abandoned by her group. She was a mother, a learner, and a partner in this new life. Together with Tahoma, she was building a future one step at a time. The morning sun peeked through the trees, casting soft light on the forest floor. Hannah woke to the gentle cooing of her babies. Their small hands reached out, and she smiled, feeling their warmth against her. It was a new day, and with it came the promise of more work and learning. Tahoma was already up, checking the fire and preparing for their tasks ahead. Hannah joined him, feeling a sense of purpose. Today, they needed to find more resources. The forest was generous but required constant effort to gather what they needed. After a quick breakfast, Tahoma gestured toward the forest. Hannah understood they would be venturing further today. The weather had cleared, and it was a good opportunity to gather supplies. She wrapped the babies securely, ensuring they were comfortable and warm. Together, they moved through the forest, their eyes scanning for signs of food and materials. Tahoma led the way, his steps confident and sure. Hannah followed, feeling more at ease with each day spent in this place. The forest was no longer just a backdrop. It was becoming a part of her life. As they walked, Tahoma pointed out various plants, explaining their uses through simple gestures. Hannah paid close attention, eager to learn. She was starting to recognize the different leaves and berries, understanding which were safe and which to avoid. It was a slow process, but she felt progress with each new discovery. The forest was alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the distant call of an animal. Hannah found comfort in these sounds, a reminder that they were not alone in this vast world. They reached a small clearing where Tahoma showed her how to set more complex traps. Today, he wanted to teach her to catch larger game. Hannah watched as he worked, his hands moving deftly. She tried to mimic his actions, her fingers clumsy at first. But with Tahoma's patience, she managed to set the trap correctly. The trap was a simple design using branches and a bit of string. Tahoma explained through gestures that this would catch something larger, like a deer or a rabbit. Hannah felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She knew that every catch was vital for their survival, especially with the babies to feed. They continued their work, gathering mushrooms and roots, their bags slowly filling. Hannah felt a sense of achievement with each item added. She was contributing more each day, her skills growing alongside her confidence. As the sun moved higher in the sky, they returned to check the traps they had set earlier. Hannah's heart raced with anticipation. She hoped to find something, a sign that her efforts were paying off. As they approached one of the traps, Tahoma suddenly stopped, his hand raised in a signal for caution. Hannah froze, her eyes following his gaze. There, near the trap, was a small deer caught in the snare. Her heart leapt with relief and gratitude. The deer would provide much-needed meat, a precious resource in these harsh conditions. Tahoma moved carefully, showing her how to handle the animal with respect and skill. Hannah watched, learning from his actions. With the deer secured, they made their way back to camp. The babies babbled happily, sensing the positive energy. Hannah felt a renewed sense of hope. They had food, and with it, more security for the days ahead. Back at the camp, Tahoma prepared the deer, showing Hannah each step. She helped where she could, eager to learn. The process was new to her, but she was determined to master it. Each part of the deer was used, nothing wasted. It was a lesson in respect for the land and its gifts. As they cooked the meat over the fire, Hannah felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had come a long way from the lost and desperate woman she had been. With Tahoma's guidance, she was finding her place in this world. The evening meal was a celebration of their efforts. The babies giggled as they watched the flames, their small hands clapping in delight. Hannah felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of fulfillment that she had not felt in a long time. After dinner, they sat by the fire, the quiet of the forest surrounding them. Hannah thought about the challenges they had faced and the ones still to come. But she was no longer afraid. She had learned to trust herself and her abilities. Tahoma shared a few words of his language, teaching her simple phrases. Hannah repeated them, her tongue stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds. But she was determined to learn, to bridge the gap between them. Each word was a step toward understanding, a way to deepen their connection. As the stars filled the night sky, Hannah felt a sense of peace. She was not alone. She had Tahoma and her children, and together they were building a life. It was not the life she had imagined, but it was rich with meaning and purpose. Hannah wrapped the babies in their blankets, their small faces serene in sleep. She whispered softly to them, promising to keep them safe. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it. With Tahoma by her side, she had found strength she did not know she had. Their partnership was growing, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. Together, they would face whatever challenges came their way, united in their fight for survival. The days passed, and Hannah settled into a routine with Tahoma and the babies. The forest had become her home, its rhythms familiar and comforting. She had learned much from Tahoma, her skills growing with each new task. The babies were thriving, their laughter a constant joy in her life. One morning, as they prepared to venture into the forest, Tahoma paused, his attention caught by something in the distance. He gestured for Hannah to stay quiet and listen. She strained her ears, hearing faint voices carried on the wind. It was a sound she had not expected. Other people were nearby. Her heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. She had not seen another settler since her group had left her behind. She wondered who these people were and whether they could be trusted. Tahoma seemed cautious, and she knew to follow his lead. They moved quietly through the trees, the voices growing louder as they approached. In a small clearing, they saw a group of settlers. They looked weary, their clothes worn and their faces tired from travel. Hannah felt a pang of sympathy, remembering her own struggles in the forest. The settlers had set up a makeshift camp, their supplies scattered around them. They were huddled together, speaking in low tones. Hannah watched from a distance, unsure of what to do. She felt the urge to help but knew the risks involved. Tahoma studied the group, his expression thoughtful. He turned to Hannah, his eyes questioning. She understood his concern. Helping these people could put their own safety at risk. But she also knew the value of kindness in desperate times. After a moment of silent discussion, they decided to approach the settlers. Hannah stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The settlers looked up, surprise and caution in their eyes. She raised her hands in a gesture of peace, hoping to show she meant no harm. The leader of the group, a man with a weathered face, stepped forward. He spoke with a voice rough from fatigue, explaining they were lost and in need of assistance. Hannah listened carefully, her heart going out to them. She knew what it was like to feel alone and vulnerable in the wilderness. Tahoma stood by her side, his presence reassuring. He nodded, indicating they would help. Hannah felt a sense of relief knowing they had made the right choice. They could share their knowledge and resources even if just for a short time. Together, they worked to help the settlers. Tahoma showed them how to find food and water, while Hannah helped tend to their belongings. It was hard work, but she felt a sense of purpose. The settlers were grateful, their spirits lifting with each act of kindness. As they worked, the settlers shared stories of their journey. They spoke of the hardships they had faced, the challenges of the land and the loss of loved ones. Hannah listened, her heart heavy with empathy. She understood their struggles, having lived them herself. In return, she shared her own story, how she had survived with Tahoma's help. The settlers listened with interest, their respect for her growing. They saw her not just as a survivor, but as a leader in her own right. The babies were a source of joy for everyone, their laughter infectious. The settlers doted on them, their spirits lifted by the children's innocence. Hannah felt a deep sense of community forming, a bond forged in shared hardship. As the day turned to evening, the settlers expressed their gratitude. They offered to share what little they had, a gesture of goodwill. Tahoma and Hannah accepted, knowing that every bit helped. It was a reminder of the power of human connection, the strength found in unity. Before the settlers moved on, they shared valuable information about the terrain ahead. They spoke of a river to the west, a potential source of fresh water. They mentioned a valley rumored to be rich in resources, a place where they might find safety and sustenance. Hannah felt a spark of hope at their words. The valley could be a new beginning, a chance to build a better life. She discussed the possibility with Tahoma, their minds turning to the future. They knew the journey would be difficult, but it was an opportunity they could not ignore. As the settlers prepared to leave, Hannah felt a mix of emotions. She was grateful for the encounter, for the chance to help and be helped in return. She knew their paths might never cross again, but their meeting had left a lasting impact. The settlers thanked them once more, their eyes filled with gratitude. Hannah watched as they disappeared into the forest, their figures growing smaller in the distance. She felt a sense of loss but also a deep sense of fulfillment. Back at their camp, Hannah and Tahoma sat by the fire, the babies nestled between them. They spoke of the future, of the journey they might take to the valley. It was a daunting prospect, but they felt ready to face it together. Hannah knew the days ahead would be challenging, but she was filled with determination. She had found strength in herself she had not known existed. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could overcome any obstacle. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Hannah felt a sense of peace. She had faced many trials but had found hope and purpose in their midst. Together, with Tahoma and her children, she was building a new life, one filled with promise and possibility. Hannah and Tahoma continued their routine in the forest, each day bringing them closer together. The encounter with the settlers had left a mark on them both, a reminder of the world beyond their small camp. They often spoke of the valley, their minds filled with possibilities. But for now, they focused on the present, on the tasks that filled their days. The mornings were spent gathering food and tending to the camp. Hannah had grown skilled in foraging, her eyes quick to spot the plants and berries Tahoma had taught her to find. She felt a sense of pride in her abilities, a confidence that had been absent in the early days of her journey. The babies were growing fast, their laughter a constant source of joy. They toddled around the camp, their curiosity boundless. Hannah watched them with a heart full of love, grateful for their health and happiness. They were her motivation, the reason she pushed herself to learn and adapt. In the afternoons, Tahoma shared more of his world with Hannah. He spoke of his family, his voice filled with warmth and nostalgia. He told her of the traditions that had shaped his life, the stories passed down through generations. Hannah listened intently, each tale a window into a rich and vibrant culture. She found solace in these stories, a connection to something greater than herself. They were a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, the strength found in community and tradition. Hannah felt honored to be part of this, to learn from Tahoma and share in his heritage. As their bond deepened, they began to share more of themselves. Hannah spoke of her life before, her dreams and hopes. She told Tahoma about her husband, John, and the life they had planned together. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of her loss and longing. Tahoma listened with understanding, his presence a comfort. He did not speak much of his own losses, but Hannah sensed the pain in his eyes. They were two souls, brought together by circumstance, each finding healing in the other's company. Their partnership extended beyond words. They worked in harmony, their movements synchronized by shared purpose. Hannah had come to rely on Tahoma, his strength and wisdom a guiding force. She knew she could not have survived without him, and she was grateful for his presence in her life. Evenings were a time for reflection, for quiet moments by the fire. The forest was peaceful, the night sounds a lullaby that soothed her soul. Hannah found herself looking forward to these moments, the time when they could simply be together, the worries of the day set aside. The babies would often fall asleep in their laps, their small bodies warm and trusting. Hannah felt a sense of completeness in those moments, a deep contentment that filled her heart. She had found a family, a place where she belonged. Tahoma had become more than a guide. He was a partner and a friend. They shared a vision for the future, a hope for a life beyond the struggles of survival. The valley was part of that vision, a dream they nurtured together. Hannah had learned much from Tahoma, but she had also taught him. Her determination and resilience had inspired him, her kindness and empathy a balm to his soul. He had opened his heart to her, sharing his world and finding acceptance in return. As the days turned to weeks, they began to prepare for the journey to the valley. It was a decision they had made together, a step toward a new beginning. They gathered supplies, planned their route, and spoke of the challenges they might face. The journey would not be easy, but they felt ready. They had faced many trials together, each one strengthening their bond. Hannah knew that with Tahoma by her side, they could overcome any obstacle. The forest had been their teacher, their sanctuary. It had given them the skills and the strength to survive. But it was time to move forward, to seek the promise of a new life. Hannah felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as the day of their departure approached. She was leaving behind the safety of the familiar, but she was not afraid. She had learned to trust herself and her abilities, to find courage in the face of uncertainty. With Tahoma and her children, she was building a future, one filled with hope and possibility. The valley awaited, a place where they could create a home, a community. It was a dream worth pursuing, a chance to build a life rich with meaning and love. As they sat by the fire on their last night in the camp, Hannah felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had found strength in herself she had not known existed. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could overcome any challenge. Together, they would face the journey ahead, united in their vision for the future. The forest had been their refuge, but the valley called them forward. It was a new chapter, a step toward a life filled with promise and endless possibilities. As dawn broke, Hannah and Tahoma prepared to leave the camp that had been their home. The babies were bundled up warmly, their eyes wide with curiosity. Hannah felt a mix of emotions, excitement for the journey ahead, but also a touch of sadness at leaving the familiar behind. They set out, moving through the forest with practiced ease. Tahoma led the way, his steps sure and steady. Hannah followed closely, each step taking them closer to the valley they dreamed of. The forest was quiet, the sounds of their departure muffled by the thick trees. The journey was not without its challenges. The terrain was rough and the path was not always clear. Hannah and Tahoma had to navigate around obstacles, their progress sometimes slow. But they were determined, their spirits fueled by hope. One afternoon, as they walked through a narrow pass, Tahoma stopped suddenly. He pointed to the ground, showing Hannah tracks that led away from their path. Her heart quickened, recognizing the signs of another group. The tracks were fresh, and Tahoma's expression turned serious. Hannah felt a twinge of fear, knowing that other settlers could mean trouble. They had heard stories of hostile groups, people driven to desperation by hunger and hardship. They moved cautiously, Tahoma signaling for silence. Hannah held the babies close, her senses heightened. Each sound seemed magnified, the forest around them suddenly tense. They had to stay alert, ready for anything. As they continued, the tracks grew more numerous, leading them toward a clearing. Tahoma motioned for them to hide behind a cluster of trees, their presence concealed. From their vantage point, they could see a group of settlers encamped in the open. The settlers looked weary, their camp disorganized and chaotic. Hannah watched them with mixed emotions. She felt compassion for their plight but knew the risk they posed. A large group could easily overwhelm their small family. Tahoma studied the camp, his eyes scanning for signs of threat. Hannah trusted his judgment, knowing he would not lead them into danger. They waited, watching, assessing the situation. As they observed, a commotion broke out in the camp. Voices were raised, and the settlers began to argue. Hannah strained to hear, trying to understand what was happening. It seemed they were divided, some wanting to move on, others insisting on staying. The argument grew heated, tension rising among the group. Hannah felt a pang of anxiety, knowing how quickly things could escalate. She glanced at Tahoma, seeking his guidance. He remained calm, his focus unbroken. Suddenly, a group of settlers broke away, moving in their direction. Hannah's breath caught, her heart pounding in her chest. She and Tahoma crouched lower, hoping to remain unseen. The settlers passed by, their voices fading into the distance. Hannah released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They had not been discovered, but the encounter left her shaken. Tahoma signaled for them to move, leading them away from the clearing. They walked quickly, putting distance between themselves and the settlers. Hannah's mind raced, the reality of their situation sinking in. They continued on, their path now more uncertain. Tahoma's vigilance increased, his senses attuned to the slightest change. Hannah mirrored his caution, her eyes scanning the forest for any sign of danger. As evening approached, they found a sheltered spot to camp for the night. Hannah felt a sense of relief, grateful for the safety of the secluded area. They set up a small fire, its warmth a welcome comfort. The babies settled down, their eyes heavy with sleep. Hannah watched them, her heart filled with love and determination. They were her reason for everything, the force that drove her forward. Sitting by the fire, Hannah and Tahoma discussed their next steps. The encounter with the settlers had been a reminder of the risks they faced. They would need to be more careful, more vigilant in their journey. Tahoma spoke of alternate routes, paths that might lead them away from other groups. Hannah listened, her mind focused on the task ahead. They had to reach the valley to find the safety and resources it promised. Despite the challenges, Hannah felt a deep sense of resolve. She had come so far, learned so much, and she was not about to give up. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could overcome any obstacle. The night was calm, the stars bright above them. Hannah found peace in the quiet, a moment of respite from the day's events. She knew the journey would be long, but she was ready to face it. With Tahoma and her children, she had found strength she never knew she had. Together, they would continue, united in their quest for a new life. The valley awaited, a beacon of hope in the distance. As she drifted to sleep, Hannah held onto that hope, knowing it would guide them through whatever lay ahead. They were not alone. They had each other, and together, they would find their way. The journey continued, each day bringing Hannah, Tahoma, and the babies closer to the valley. The forest was a constant presence, its vastness both daunting and comforting. They moved with purpose, their steps guided by hope and determination. The encounter with the settlers had left its mark, a reminder of the world beyond their small family. But Hannah and Tahoma had not let fear deter them. They were vigilant, choosing their path with care, always aware of the potential for danger. As they walked, the landscape began to change. The dense forest gave way to open spaces, the air lighter and the sky broader. The promise of spring was in the air, the world slowly waking from its winter slumber. One afternoon, as they rested by a gentle stream, Tahoma gestured to the horizon. There, in the distance, lay the valley they had dreamed of. Hannah felt a surge of excitement, her heart lifting at the sight. It was real and it was within reach. They continued their journey, their spirits buoyed by the promise of the valley. The path was not always easy, but they faced each challenge with courage. Hannah felt a growing sense of confidence, her skills honed by necessity and experience. The babies were thriving, their laughter a constant source of joy. They toddled alongside Hannah, their small hands reaching for the world around them. She watched them with a heart full of love, grateful for their health and happiness. As they drew closer to the valley, Hannah and Tahoma spoke of their plans. They dreamed of a home, a place where they could build a future for the babies. The valley offered the resources they needed, a chance to create a life rich with possibility. One evening, as they set up camp, Tahoma suggested a small celebration. They had come so far, faced so many trials, and it was time to acknowledge their journey. Hannah agreed, feeling the need to mark the moment. Tahoma shared some of his traditions, simple gestures that spoke of gratitude and hope. Hannah added her own touches, drawing from her memories and dreams. Together, they created a small ceremony, a blend of their worlds. They gathered around the fire, the babies nestled between them. The flames danced, casting a warm glow over their faces. Hannah felt a sense of peace, a moment of calm in the midst of uncertainty. Tahoma spoke softly, his words carrying the wisdom of his ancestors. He spoke of the land, of the connection between people and nature. Hannah listened, feeling the truth in his words. The land had been their teacher, their refuge, and now it would be their home. She shared her own thoughts, her hopes for the future. She spoke of the life she wanted for the babies, a life filled with love and opportunity. Her voice was steady, her heart full of determination. As the night deepened, they sat in silence, the fire crackling softly. Hannah felt a deep sense of gratitude for Tahoma, for his friendship and guidance. They had formed a bond, a partnership built on trust and respect. The stars shone brightly above them, a reminder of the vastness of the world. Hannah felt small in comparison, but she was not afraid. She had found strength in herself, a resilience she had not known existed. With Tahoma by her side, she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The valley was a new beginning, a chance to build a life filled with promise. Together, they would create a home, a place where the babies could grow and thrive. As the fire burned low, Hannah held the babies close, their small bodies warm against her. She whispered promises to them, vows of love and protection. She knew the journey had only just begun, but she was ready to face it. The night was still, the world around them at peace. Hannah felt a sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy that filled her heart. She had found a family, a place where she belonged, and a future bright with possibility. As she drifted to sleep, she held on to that hope, knowing it would guide them through whatever lay ahead. The valley awaited, a beacon of hope in the distance, and together, they would find their way. Hannah woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the trees. The air was fresh, carrying the promise of a new day. The babies were still asleep, their breathing steady and calm. She watched them for a moment, her heart full of love and gratitude. Tahoma was already awake, his eyes scanning the horizon. The valley lay ahead, a place full of potential and promise. But reaching it meant making some important decisions. They had to choose the best path, the one that would ensure safety and sustainability. As they ate a simple breakfast, Hannah and Tahoma discussed their options. The valley was close, but the route was not straightforward. There were several paths, each with its own risks and rewards. They needed to weigh their choices carefully, considering the well-being of the babies and their own abilities. Tahoma suggested a path that followed the river. It provided a steady source of water, but it might be more exposed. Hannah thought about her own instincts and the skills she had learned. She considered the environment, the weather, and the challenges they might face. She remembered the advice from the settlers they had met. They had mentioned a route through the low hills, a way that was more sheltered but longer. It was a difficult decision, one that required careful thought and planning. Hannah and Tahoma spent the morning studying the terrain, using Tahoma's knowledge of the land and Hannah's growing understanding. They marked their route on a simple map, noting landmarks and potential obstacles. As the sun climbed higher, they reached a decision. They would take the path through the hills, choosing safety over speed. It was a calculated risk, but one they felt was right for their family. With their plan in place, they set out, their movements purposeful and steady. The path was challenging, but Hannah felt a sense of determination. They were taking control of their future, making choices that would shape their new life. The hills were gentle but required careful navigation. Tahoma led the way, his eyes scanning for signs of danger. Hannah followed closely, the babies secure in their wraps. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also a growing confidence in her ability to lead. As they moved deeper into the hills, the landscape changed. The forest opened up, revealing rolling terrain and wide skies. Hannah felt a sense of freedom, the world expanding around them. It was a reminder of the possibilities that lay ahead. The journey was not without its challenges. The path was sometimes steep, requiring careful footing and extra effort. Hannah and Tahoma worked together, their movements synchronized by trust and experience. They paused often to rest, ensuring the babies were comfortable and safe. Hannah took these moments to gather her thoughts, to think about the life they were building. Each step brought them closer to the valley, to the home they dreamed of creating. As the day wore on, they encountered signs of wildlife, tracks and scat that marked the presence of animals. It was a reminder of the balance they needed to maintain, the respect for the land and its inhabitants. Tahoma pointed out the signs, teaching Hannah what to look for. She listened carefully, absorbing the knowledge. It was another skill to add to her growing list, another way to ensure their survival. The sun began to dip in the sky, casting long shadows across the hills. Hannah felt a sense of urgency, knowing they needed to find a place to camp for the night. Tahoma scouted ahead, searching for a suitable spot. They found a small clearing, sheltered by a cluster of trees. It was a perfect spot, offering protection and a view of the surrounding area. They set up camp, their movements practiced and efficient. As the evening settled in, they built a small fire, its warmth a welcome comfort. The babies played nearby, their laughter a soothing balm to Hannah's soul. She watched them with a heart full of love, grateful for their health and happiness. Sitting by the fire, Hannah and Tahoma spoke of the day, of the decisions they had made. They reflected on their journey, the challenges they had faced and the lessons they had learned. It was a moment of connection, a chance to reaffirm their partnership. Hannah felt a deep sense of gratitude for Tahoma, for his strength and wisdom. He had become an integral part of her life, a partner in every sense of the word. Together, they had built a bond that transcended words, a connection forged by shared experiences and mutual respect. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Hannah felt a sense of peace. She had faced many challenges, but she was stronger for it. She had learned to trust herself and her instincts, to find courage in the face of uncertainty. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could overcome any obstacle. The valley was within reach, a place where they could build a future filled with promise and possibility. Together, they would create a home, a place where the babies could grow and thrive. As she drifted to sleep, Hannah held onto that hope, knowing it would guide them through whatever lay ahead. The journey was long, but they were not alone. They had each other, and together they would find their way. The morning sun brought warmth to the hills as Hannah, Tahoma, and the babies resumed their journey. The path was clearer now, leading them down from the hills toward the valley. Each step felt lighter, the promise of their destination filling them with energy. The landscape began to change, the hills giving way to open plains. Hannah felt a sense of wonder, the vastness of the land stretching out before her. The valley was close, its edges visible in the distance. It seemed to beckon them forward, a place of potential and hope. They moved steadily, their pace quick but careful. Tahoma led the way, eyes scanning the terrain for any signs of danger. Hannah followed, her senses alert, the babies secure against her. She felt a mix of excitement and anticipation, each step bringing them closer to their goal. As they walked, they encountered small challenges, streams to cross, rocky paths to navigate. But these obstacles did not deter them. Hannah had grown strong, her body and mind honed by the journey. She felt capable, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The babies were content, their laughter a constant companion. They watched the world with wide eyes, their curiosity boundless. Hannah drew strength from them, their innocence a reminder of what mattered most. As midday approached, they paused to rest by a small grove of trees. The shade was welcome, the air cool and refreshing. Hannah and Tahoma shared a simple meal, their conversation light but filled with purpose. They spoke of the valley, their plans for the future. It was a vision they shared, a dream that had guided their journey. They wanted to build a home, a place where the babies could grow and thrive. It was a daunting task, but one they felt ready to undertake. After their break, they continued on, the valley drawing ever closer. The terrain shifted again, the ground flattening, the grass growing taller. Hannah felt a sense of anticipation, the air tinged with the promise of new beginnings. As they neared the valley, they encountered signs of other travelers. Old campsites, footprints in the dirt. It was a reminder that they were not alone, that others sought the same promise. But Hannah felt no fear, only determination. They had come so far, and the valley was within reach. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the landscape. Hannah felt a surge of emotion, a mix of relief and joy. They had made it. The valley spread out before them, a vast expanse of green and gold. Tahoma stopped, his eyes scanning the horizon. He pointed to a spot in the distance, a place where the land rose slightly, offering a view of the surrounding area. It was a perfect location, a place to build their new home. With renewed energy, they made their way to the spot, their steps filled with purpose. The land was rich and fertile, a place of abundance and possibility. Hannah felt a sense of belonging, a connection to the earth beneath her feet. They set up camp, their movements efficient and practiced. The babies played nearby, their laughter filling the air. Hannah watched them with a heart full of love, grateful for their health and happiness. Sitting by the fire that evening, Hannah and Tahoma spoke of their plans. They discussed the work that lay ahead, the tasks they needed to complete. It was a daunting list, but one they were eager to tackle. Hannah felt a sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy that filled her soul. They had faced many challenges, but they had overcome them together. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could achieve anything. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Hannah felt a deep sense of peace. The valley was a new beginning, a place where they could build a life filled with promise and possibility. Together, they would create a home, a place where the babies could grow and thrive. She drifted to sleep with a heart full of hope, knowing they had found their way. The journey had been long, but they had reached their destination. They were not alone. They had each other, and together, they would build a future bright with promise. The first light of dawn peeked over the horizon, painting the valley in soft hues. Hannah woke to the gentle sounds of nature, the promise of a new day filling the air. The babies were still asleep, their small bodies nestled close. She watched them for a moment, her heart full of love and gratitude. Tahoma was already up, tending to the fire. His presence was steady and reassuring, a constant in their ever-changing world. Hannah felt a deep sense of partnership with him, a bond forged through shared experiences and mutual respect. Today marked the beginning of their new life. The valley lay before them, a place of untapped potential. There was much to do, but Hannah felt ready to face the challenges. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could build the home they had dreamed of. Their first task was to secure a reliable source of water. The river was nearby, its waters clear and abundant. Together, they planned a simple irrigation system to bring water to their camp. It was a vital step, one that would ensure their survival and support their future crops. Hannah and Tahoma worked side by side, their movements synchronized by practice and purpose. The babies played nearby, their laughter a constant source of joy. Hannah felt a sense of accomplishment with each task completed, a step closer to their vision. Next, they needed to build a shelter. The valley offered plenty of materials, wood, stone, and clay. Tahoma showed Hannah how to construct a simple, sturdy structure. She learned quickly, her hands steady and sure. It was hard work, but she relished the challenge. As the sun climbed higher, they paused to rest and eat. The babies sat with them, their eyes bright with curiosity. Hannah felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy that filled her heart. They were building a future, one filled with hope and promise. The days turned into weeks, each one marked by progress and achievement. Hannah and Tahoma worked tirelessly, their efforts fueled by determination and love. The valley had become their home, its rhythms familiar and comforting. The shelter took shape, a testament to their hard work and perseverance. It was simple but solid, a place to keep them safe and warm. Hannah felt a deep sense of pride, knowing they had created something lasting and meaningful. With the shelter complete, they turned their attention to the land. They planned a small garden, a place to grow food and herbs. Tahoma shared his knowledge, teaching Hannah which plants would thrive in the valley's soil. Together, they planted seeds, their hands working the earth with care. Hannah felt a connection to the land, a sense of belonging that filled her soul. She knew it would take time and patience, but she was willing to wait. The babies were thriving, their laughter a constant source of joy. They explored the valley with wide eyes, their curiosity boundless. Hannah watched them with a heart full of love, grateful for their health and happiness. As the seasons changed, so did the landscape. The valley blossomed with life, its beauty a reminder of the cycle of nature. Hannah felt a deep sense of peace, a contentment that filled her days. Their small community grew as other travelers found their way to the valley. Each new arrival brought skills and stories, enriching their lives and strengthening their bonds. Hannah welcomed them with open arms, grateful for the connection and support. Together, they built a thriving community, a place where everyone had a role to play. Hannah felt a sense of fulfillment, a purpose that guided her actions. She had found a home, a family, and a future filled with endless possibilities. As the sun set over the valley, Hannah stood with Tahoma, their eyes on the horizon. They had faced many challenges, but they had overcome them together. With each new day, they were building a life rich with meaning and love. Hannah knew the journey would continue, that there would be new trials to face. But she was not afraid. She had found strength in herself, a resilience that would carry her forward. With Tahoma by her side, she believed they could achieve anything. Together, they would face the future, united in hope and love. The valley was their home, a place of promise and possibility. As the stars filled the night sky, Hannah felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had found her place in the world, a life filled with purpose and joy. With her family and community, she was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Together, they would find their way. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.